We have ourselves two pieces of Montreal Canadiens news to dive into today. First, a contract signing. Secondly, a trade with the Ottawa Senators. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait a minute, the trade deadline is passed. How can there be trades? How can there be contract signings? Well, let's go out there and dive into that. Firstly, the trade front. As we had mentioned, the AHL trade deadline was actually today, so you were going to see some moves made between these NHL teams that essentially just swapped AHL eligible and AHL primary players. That's exactly what we had seen out of the Canadiens and the Senators. Meanwhile, when it comes to the contract signing, the guy getting signed was playing out of the NCAA. So now is the time to go out there and sign him. Let's dive into these pieces of news real quick here. So firstly, the Canadiens have agreed to terms on a 2-year entry-level contract which begins in 2026-2027 with defenseman Luke Mittelstadt. Now I know what you might be thinking, Luke Mittelstadt, wait a minute, is that not the brother of Casey Mittelstadt? And yes, you will be right about that. Big shout out over to Super Save Music for the subscription right here. I really appreciate that. Happy it was able to pop up while we're recording this video. But Luke Mittelstadt is 23 years old, 5'11", 185, a left-handed defenseman drafted by the Montreal Canadiens back in 2023. 7th round, 197th overall, a very young player compared to his brother Casey. Casey was drafted 2017. Luke was drafted 2023. Now, to be fair, Luke also was eligible for the 2021 NHL Entry Draft and the 2022 draft, but he ended up going unselected in both of those years. He wasn't really doing all too hot. He was just in the USHS Minnesota high school leagues. He was doing all right there, but not enough for him to get drafted. Eventually, he was a near point-per-game defenseman with the Madison Capitals in the USHL, and that's when the Montreal Canadiens decided to take a flyer on him. Luke then spent the next 3 seasons with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, following in the footsteps of his brother Casey. This previous season, he was the captain of the team, scoring 21 points in 36 games played. Now that he's signed on with the Montreal Canadiens, he'll probably join the team in a tryout capacity to end off this season before his real ELC begins next season, where he'll probably be given the full reins as an AHL defenseman. Montreal wouldn't have the opportunity to use Luke Mittelstadt in their playoff run this season. His contract doesn't begin until next, and if I'm not mistaken, he'll be joining Laval on a tryout. Let's go out there and read some of the replies over here. Montreal's 7th round prospect, 197th overall Luke Mittelstadt, has gotten rewarded for performing well at the University of Minnesota. Congrats, young man. Obviously related to Casey, right? 2 years for a guy with 0 NHL experience? Another classic Kent Hughes L. Okay, that is rage bait right there. Cannot wait for the signing of Michael Hage. Yeah, we'll see. That's probably going to happen sometime over the next few weeks here. But Luke Mittelstadt is what we have to go for right now. I'm not saying that Mittelstadt is going to project to being an NHL defenseman anytime soon. He was a double overager 7th round pick when he was taken by the Canadiens, but just seeing him get a pro contract in the first place is a pretty good deal. And so I like to see the development and the progress of prospects the Canadiens have drafted. He is 23 years old, so obviously it's not like he's got a lot of time. He's kind of got to show up and be a player really quickly if he's going to have any sort of an NHL future, but he's a nice stopgap to have in Laval. Speaking about Laval, let's go out there and talk about the actual trade that went down between the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs have acquired goaltender Hunter Shepard and forward Jake Chiasson from the Ottawa Senators in return for Riley Kidney. Now, goodbye to Riley Kidney over here. A 22-year-old spark plug, 6 feet 190 left-handed guy, center left wing drafted by the Canadiens back in 2021, 63rd overall. He is the newest Belleville Senator, and honestly, I'm not all too surprised to see him actually get traded. Yes, it's true that Riley Kidney showcased a very good amount of points and production in the QMJHL. He had scored 100 points after being drafted by the Montreal Canadiens with the Acadie Bathurst Titans, before having another 100-plus point campaign in only 60 games split between the Titans and the Olympiques the next year. Heading over to the AHL, though, Riley Kidney did not have the best transition. 20 points in 65 games the first year, 16 points in 56 games the next, and then this season he had played 6 AHL games and spent most of his time with the Trois-Rivières Lions in the ECHL, where he had 33 points in 46 games there. Riley Kidney was a guy seen as a buzzsaw, with a lot of tools and some offensive pizzazz, whilst also providing a strong work ethic. Honestly, kind of a guy that similarly follows the mold of a Ridley Gregg in Ottawa. The Senators taking a chance on a guy like this obviously makes sense in my mind. He fits the playstyle that they seem to value. However, it doesn't really look all too optimistic for Kidney to be having an NHL future based off of the downward progression of him going to the ECHL and not even being a really dominant player over there. So, unfortunately for Canadiens fans who wanted to see Riley Kidney become the next best thing, you may have to take your cheering over to Ottawa. In exchange, the Habs are getting themselves Jake Chiasson, who also was playing in the ECHL this season. He had 8 points in 14 games as a member of the Allen Americans, although he had himself more games with the AHL and the Belleville Senators. Chiasson is 22 years old from Abbotsford, British Columbia, 6'2", 181, a center right wing and a right-handed guy. Initially drafted by the Oilers, 4th round, 116th overall. Take a look at the profile here, just see what happened to send him over to Ottawa in the first place. Jake Chiasson was acquired in the Xavier Bourgault-Robillard trade all the way back in 2024. So there's already a pretty interesting trade history with this guy, going from Edmonton over to Ottawa, and now from Ottawa over to Montreal. He is listed as a Lion because he'll probably be assigned over there. But Jake Chiasson was a pretty decent WHL player, never really a guy to stand out on the score sheet, but a guy who was there nonetheless, who ended up playing some ECHL time and some AHL time over the past few seasons. Nothing really too special here out of Jake Chiasson, but he is a body to replace the roster role that a Riley Kidney had. And then you have yourselves goaltender Hunter Shepard coming over to the Canadiens as well. He is 30 years old, so anybody looking for a prospect, a stopgap in net, Hunter Shepard is not your guy, unfortunately. He is already old, 6'1", 218, left-handed goaltender right there. I guess because Jacob Fowler is going to be sticking around with the Montreal Canadiens, you need a guy in Laval. You can't just have the same players rotating around. You needed an extra body. And Hunter Shepard was a pretty decent addition over here, considering his track record in the AHL. Yes, there were some seasons where he was a lot better than others. 9-2-2 with the Hershey Bears. 9-2-9 with the Hershey Bears. But because he was always in the bubble, he would get some sort of an NHL opportunity once in a while. In 24-25, he had 1 game played in the NHL, and he posted up a .731 save percentage and a 7 goals against average. That's not great. This season, though, the 1 game he has had with the Ottawa Senators has been a bit better, .833 save percentage and a .335 goals against in 1 game. However, in the AHL, Hunter Shepard is down there at an .885 save percentage in 15 total games. Not really the best record, but again, with Jacob Fowler up in the mix with Montreal, Laval needed a body, and today was the trade deadline, so they're going out there and making themselves a move, taking on an acquiring goaltender that they essentially needed here at this point. So with all that said, I would say maybe the Ottawa Senators came away with more value out of the trade, considering Riley Kidney had more of a stock when he was younger. But Jake Chiasson is a body to fill up the spot. Hunter Shepard is a goaltender that Laval needed. Meanwhile, Luke Mittelstadt is coming over. He's a pretty nice pickup from the Golden Gophers and a Canadiens prospect, so obviously there's a lot to like over there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these Montreal Canadiens news and notes, from the signing of Luke Mittelstadt to this trade involving Chiasson, Shepard, and Kidney. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.